Picture this, I'm a bag of dicks, put me to your lips. I am sick, I will punch a baby bear in his shit. Give me lip, I'm gonna send you to the
Push to Shout, episode 85, we're back. The boys are back in town. This is the day where we blow your socks off with our triumphant return. Skippy, we've traveled long, we've traveled far. And on our travels, I think we played some video games.
Well, not only, yes, we have traveled long and far. Both of us have had travels in our last couple of weeks.
Tribulations, trials as well.
Yes. In the time that we've been gone, I had a race weekend at Barber Motorsports Park. It was fun. I don't have much more to say about races. And then I also moved into a new condo.
Oh, really?
As you can see,
A condo, huh?
these digs are different.
Are they, what do you think? Are they worse digs? Are they better digs?
Much better digs.
Much better digs.
I am now a homeowner, and it's like 3 times the size as my last apartment.
Okay.
And it's good. It's very good. It's been long and hard getting it ready. I've had to get the floors done and the bathrooms done, and there's still stuff not done. It's been a pain in the ass.
So you own this place?
But I own this place.
Okay, alright.
I'm a homeowner.
Amazing. A
It's
condo
interesting.
owner. But
Yes.
I guess it's still not renting.
It's still a home.
Yeah.
It's still a home.
Yeah.
I also, speaking of life changes, got a 1070 GT.
Oh, yeah.
1070.
That's bigger news.
It is a big, yeah, it's a much bigger deal than a new home. No, it's good. It's good. It runs games fast.
What did you have before?
670.
Okay, alright. So that's a pretty big leap.
Pretty big leap. Although the 670, it served me well. I mean, I didn't have trouble running any games with that thing. Yeah, 1070 is good. I tried out a few games on it. I tried out the Battlefield 1 beta just to see how it would run. It ran well. There's some weird shit about that beta, like the resolution scale, which is a thing I've seen a lot more of in games, which is apparently some kind of semi-anti-aliasing thing. Like you can make it above 100% and it'll kind of smooth out edges and stuff somehow. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but yeah, I set that up to 100 thinking, okay, 100%, that's what I want. Turns out 100 is like way over 100%, and 42 is the setting you want for your actual resolution of your monitor, and if you set it to 100, it makes the game run slow. But the game still ran alright, even though I had it set at 100, so apparently it's a good card.
Okay.
Pretty happy with it. Dusted out my computer while I installed it. Everything went smoothly, no problems. Pretty excited.
I'm still running a 780 Ti, and so far I haven't run up to that point where I'm thinking I need to upgrade, but I figure maybe in like a couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, a few things have made me kind of say like, all right, it's time. It's just like every game that comes out, I spend so much time trying to figure out which settings do I need to lower, and then I get the inconsistent frame rates and stuff, and I was like, I'm spending all this money on a house, why don't I just, a condo, I might as well just blow the rest on the graphics card. No, it's good. I think it'll last me a while, so I'm excited.
Sounds like a sound decision to me.
And the game that really kind of made me go, okay, I really need to upgrade, was actually probably Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which is not a super well optimized game. It didn't run super well on my graphics card, and it didn't look very good. And so I was like, maybe it's time. And that game is alright. I like that game. It is like Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Okay, that's the one I played.
Yes.
I started Deus Ex 1, but didn't get very far. Deus Ex or Human Revolution is the only one that I've like actually played, and I don't think I finished it, but I got pretty far.
That's okay.
How's it compare? How's it stack up? Give us the
it's the
review.
Same game.
Oh.
It's the same game with more stuff. I don't know. There are some changes, like the city hub. As far as I can tell, most of the game, the large majority of the game, takes place in Prague, and it's very dense. There's a lot of it, and it's very dense. There's a lot of buildings you can go into, and apartments you can climb through the window and steal stuff from, which is like my favorite part of that game, is just like sneaking into places and stealing shit, and finding out, reading emails, And so the game's very good about that. I don't know. There's really not that much to say about it because it's so much like Human Revolution. There's some things that I feel like, okay, they definitely should have upgraded this because people were even complaining about it in Human Revolution, and now you still have this problem. Like takedowns being this weird like cinematic angle.
Oh right, yeah, where it
and,
like pulls
stop
back and
animations. It's always sucked, and they've doubled down on it, and like they've added like a few animations, but it's a lot of the same animations, like the classic tap the shoulder, punch the guy in the face, there's something really jarring about it. Like it fades to black, and then it plays the cinematic, and then it comes back, and it's just like, why would you?
Wait, it fades out to black?
Yeah, it fades to black.
Oh,
For like half a second, it fades. It's just really bizarre. I don't get it. That's a crazy decision to me. Like I would much prefer to just be able to like literally just have like a button that just punch, like a really quick punch, and you can just punch people. That would be fine. Plenty of games do that fine. But whatever. I mean, that's a pretty small complaint in the grand scheme of things. It's a fine game. The only thing the thing I really don't like about it, and I mean, Human Revolution, the story wasn't really like the overall story wasn't amazing. I mean, it had some interesting stuff about, you know, humanity transcending its biological roots and the conflict of people who have two very different ways of thinking about that kind of thing. This one, they've gone with after the events of the first game, in which after the events of Human Revolution, which ended, spoilers, with a guy basically hacking into all of the augmented people and making them go kind of crazy and like start killing people and stuff, and a bunch of people died. It was a big disaster, and now 2 years later, everyone distrusts augmented people.
okay.
And I like that as a concept. Like, okay, interesting. You've got like a segment of society that's deemed as dangerous and technology that people don't trust, and you've got to figure out what to do with them because you can't just un-augment them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's interesting, but the way they treat it is like civil rights disobedience and civil rights, like people.
It's like a parallel to
It's
real
discrimination
Okay.
in a way that doesn't, that the events and plot don't they don't support that heavy level of like actual. They make it look like there's benches with naturals only, and there's two separate lines for the subway. There's augs and naturals, and it's like, and then
Yeah,
you hear
okay.
people who aren't augmented complaining about augmented people in ways that have nothing to do with augments, and it's like, okay, I get what you're doing there, but it doesn't make any sense plot-wise. How did they come to this conclusion?
Do they play the
augmented
parallel
people
to
are smelly?
racism too close?
Yeah, they
Okay.
made it racism, and it doesn't make sense because what are like? There's no, the history isn't there. I would understand if it was a fear, and you like, okay, all the augmented people have been sent to ghettos because people are afraid of the danger that they present, and people have a fear of the augments themselves. But instead, it becomes a discrimination against people who have become augmented to the point where people hate them, and that doesn't make sense. It's fear, not hatred. And they just don't treat it with that amount of nuance. It would be much more interesting if they paralleled it more with like terrorism, you know, and like that would be a much more modern look at the thing of like how is terrorism affecting Europe? Augmented people, even in the game, there's a lot of augmented like terrorists, and they just don't work with it well. And it would be like augmented terrorists will put a bomb in a train station and blow up the train station. Well, why not have the augmented people be a terrorist and use their augments to kill people so that you reinforce the idea that people are afraid of the augment. It just they don't do the right thing with it, and it doesn't jive with me at all. Like the plot is just completely, the overall plot is just completely uninteresting. The subplots and stuff are as good as ever, even better. So then there's plenty of that. Like there's plenty of smaller stories and characters and stuff that stay interesting. They've even gone pretty far with a lot of it, where I get kind of and I don't know. This is going to sound negative, knowing my opinion of Bethesda games, but I get kind of a Bethesda vibe out of the smaller side missions sometimes, where it's like this crazy thing happening that makes its own little plot that is a little unrealistic but kind of fun. There's a lot of that kind of stuff, and that's cool. They do it well, and it's a very fun game. So I don't know. That's pretty much that for Mankind Divided, I think.
Is it worth the $60? Is this a buy, rent, or no? Skip, give us the.
It's a definite buy if you liked Human Revolution, and if you're on the fence because you haven't played Human Revolution,
then maybe just rent it. Just give it a rent.
I would say see if you can get Human Revolution for like $15 or less, and see if you like that game, because that game's great, and I can definitely recommend it for a cheaper price, and you'll see if you will like that kind of game. So yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Also, another game. I found out that the creators of Myst was a big deal for me back in the day. That was like one of my first computer games. I have a nostalgia for that game that I don't have for a lot of things. The first world of Myst, where you're on an island and the sound effects of it and everything are like ingrained in my brain. And the makers of Myst have made a new game called Abduction, and basically, I think it was a Kickstarter actually, saying like, "Hey, we're making a game that's kind of like Myst, fund us," and they did. They made it, and it's good. It's very good. I like it a lot. It's one of those games. Instead of pointing and clicking and making your way through, you can walk around. It's a walking simulator, but it's gorgeous. First of all, it uses the new Unreal Engine. It looks really, really, really good. They have some amazing effects where like I look at it and I go, I don't understand how they pulled this off. Like games don't make me say that very often anymore, because it's like I get it. I see where the technical limitations are, and like I understand kind of on a basic level what's going on. And then this game does something in particular with like there's like a teleportation kind of thing where when you activate a teleporter, the screen dissolves into little bits, and they stream around, and they're made up of what you were looking at. Like the pictures just split up into these bits, and they swarm around, and then they come back together, and you're looking at something new. And it's hard to describe how incredible it looks, because you have to see it to understand, but like the way they come back together, and it's like, oh, suddenly you're looking at where you are, is really, really, really impressive. And I don't understand how it's done. I'd be really interested to see like what's actually going on there, because you can like move your camera around at the time, and then it seamlessly you go from this loading screen of bits to the image, and there's no noticeable like, oh, here's where you're going from an image to 3D or anything like that. It's just like you're there. It's very cool.
I'll have to see this.
Yeah, look up a video of it or something. It's like at the very beginning of the game it does it, so you'll get the gist of it. But
is the gameplay, would you say, more or less puzzle heavy than something like The Witness?
Well, it's different. The Witness, the puzzles are, I mean, The Witness has here is a puzzle, and here are all the variations of this puzzle, and you're going up to panels and you're solving that puzzle. And now it goes places with that, which is amazing. And I think The Witness is an incredible game that everyone should play. But this does things in the environment where it's like, oh, you need to figure out what this lever operates and what you need to activate it, and that kind of thing. Where it's environmental puzzles, not literal puzzles. Although I have come on to a point in the game where I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay. They've done like a plot device thing where it's like, oh, this person's trying to slow you down by presenting you with a series of actual like puzzles, and it just felt really lazy to me. Like, oh, now I'm just literally solving puzzles, like your classic puzzles that aren't all that interesting. When instead, like, God, the game, it takes you to these really, really, really interesting places, and you look around and you figure out how things work. and there's one in particular where it's like there's these giant machines that you have to get operational, and you're like going down the bowels of the machine and turning levers to get things to work, and that's really awesome. And then it just says like, oh, here's a puzzle, like an actual puzzle, and that sucks.
Sudoku.
Yeah, yeah, it seems really cool so far. I have one friend who has played it on Steam who has like 25 or 30 hours in it, so I guess it's a really, really long game. I don't have no idea how far I am into it because I thought that it was all comprised of one area, and then I got teleported to a completely different area that was just as large. So I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it's really cool. I think if you liked Myst, then you'll like this game. So there you go. I don't know if I have much else to say about that one.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, that actually sounds kind of cool. I was looking at some footage of it, just kind of off to the side there, and it looks really nice.
It looks incredible.
Art design of
the
it.
graphics are awesome, yeah. And the stuff they show in like, from what I've seen of like the gameplay footage and trailers that they've shown, doesn't get you a good sense of like it takes you to some really interesting places and does some really cool things. It's amazing to look at. But honestly, I would recommend still, just because of its uniqueness, I would say if you were looking at this kind of game.
All right, we're back.
Are we streaming again?
Yes, we are. Yeah, so I'm at home
Where
right
was
now, and my dad just reset the router. So, cool.
That's why you need a night. Okay, by the way, my condo, the building is like 120 megs down, like 20 up.
Oh, nice.
The internet is incredible. So
Blazing
I'm really
fast.
excited about that. Yeah, I was saying something about The Witness versus Abduction.
You were saying if you're thinking you really want to play a game like this, then
I would recommend The Witness over Abduction because Abduction is doing the same thing that these kinds of games have been doing for a while.
well, yeah, that's the thing. I've never played a game like these
Yeah.
games have been doing.
Well, in that case, I would actually say if you've never played this kind of game and you're like, okay, I'll check it out. In that case, I would say play this or something like this, and then play The Witness, because The Witness kind of plays off of your expectations of these kind of games a little bit. I think maybe. Maybe I'm giving it a little too much credit. I
think
know,
about
but
the closest I've played to a game like this is Ethan Carter. Like a
Yeah.
walk around and do puzzles. I don't even know how close that is. It seems like Myst and Abduction are like a lot more abstract than that.
No, I would compare this a lot to Ethan Carter.
Okay.
Actually, Ethan Carter has a little less interactivity. Ethan Carter was a lot of just wandering around,
Yeah.
finding things. This has,
Puzzles.
levers to pull, elevators to go up and down on, doors to open, codes to unlock, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's a lot more like Ethan Carter than Ethan Carter's pretty similar. But The Witness is, can't recommend it enough. I really like The Witness. I've been thinking a lot more about The Witness and like, shit, yeah, it's a really cool game that I don't think has gotten the credit it really deserves. Because it is kind of out there, and I think a lot of people get turned away from it, seeing what it is. But
It's
other
also
than that, I
made
just
by
played the-
Jonathan Blow, who
Yeah.
blows.
Well,
Hmm.
separate the art from the artist.
I never had a problem with him. Maybe the braid
I don't
stuff just
remember-
happened before I was really tuned into that, but
I liked Braid a lot. I never got into Fez. I tried it, but I never got into it.
it's not him.
Fez is him. I
No,
think.
it's not. That's
Fez
Phil
is,
Fish.
Fez is Phil Fish. You're right. So Braid, yeah, Jonathan Blow went straight from Braid to
The Witness.
The Witness, I guess. Yeah, and I'm trying to remember what, like, people got pissed off at him for some reason.
I think it was because he was like pretentious or something that he.
Yeah, and Braid is pretentious.
I
and so
guess.
is The Witness. The Witness is more pretentious than Braid. The Witness is... It bothers me how pretentious The Witness is.
Really?
But that's not what I like about the game. Like the game has some sort of... It has these, like... I've told you about this, I think. It has, like, voice recorders that you pick up, and they say, like, quotes from famous people, and it doesn't have, like, any kind of narrative. It's just bullshit of, like,
Okay.
ooh, this quote seems profound, and it tries to be profound without actually saying anything, or that's what I feel. I'm sure he's trying to say something with it, but I don't get it. It's very obscure, very vague, and that's not what I like the game for. kind of same thing with Braid. Although Braid does have kind of a cool little narrative, a little bit. But actually, I like Braid. Braid has a cool story. I like Braid's story. It is pretentious, but it's cool. And yeah, other than that, Battlefield 1's beta is all I've really done, and there's nothing to say about Battlefield 1's beta. It's a Battlefield game set in World War One, and that's that.
Okay. I played quite a few games over these 2 weeks. I also went to the beach. I went beaching. I put on my sunglasses, went down to the waves, got my toes in the sand. Very nice. So, just a quick update on that. No, I had a lot of fun. I did play games, though. One that I picked up was Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. And that is a game that I've seen, like, pictures of the characters before. It's like that purple hair genie thing. It's a really fun platformer. It's very, very well made. It's a Metroidvania, but unlike most of those games where it seems like you're exploring this massive single map with all these different locked doors and passageways that you won't unlock until much, much later and you'll come back. This game, it kind of separates the content onto these islands, little islands that you sail to, and they each have a theme. Like, this is the desert island, and this is the saliva-based island, which is a whole level that they have. It's very creative levels that they have in this game. But each island is sort of manageable in thinking about the space and the layout of it and what's been blocked off and what you can come back to.
Right.
Because of the way they set it up, it makes that stuff easier to keep track of. And then the focus is then not on, just managing this web of backtracking that you have to do, and is more in the actual moment-to-moment platforming and combat. But I'd say the platforming is a bigger deal than the combat. A lot more fun than I was expecting. I'd heard good things, but not really paid much attention. But I'm glad I picked it up. I like that game a lot. And the music is kicking. Real kicking music. It's also just loaded with fan service on fan service. Doesn't even try to conceal it. Like, every character, their sprites are like tits bouncing constantly. And I got it for the 3DS, so the character portraits, when they talk, they actually like have the tits come out of the screen at you. And there's like this one character who's like fat. He's a fat dude, and then his like gut is sticking way out of the screen. It's great. It's got a sense of humor that isn't the sense of humor I'd say most games that are trying to be funny have.
Right.
So it's just a real refreshing game, a classic platformer with a lot more going on than most platformers, because you unlock abilities and come back. And very cool game, Shantae, Pirate's Curse. Cool stuff. I also played Inside, which we talked about on the podcast before. You played that. So
Did you finish it?
I did. So, I'm sure I can now understand what you were saying about the game in more detail now. But when I was playing, the presentation is spectacular. Like, that is very clearly a standout element.
Yeah.
More so than Limbo, even. Limbo I thought was cool in the way it was stylized, but it seemed mostly like this is the style of the game. Yeah, it's all just the black silhouette. It didn't have all that much impact. Well. Yeah. This, they managed to do a lot with the depth, where it's not just like a 2.5D, you're moving past a 3D environment, but what you're interacting with is all in the same place. They do clever things with, like, the dogs stand out as one example, where you're like climbing over the fence and they like run back around the pillar and then try to get you on the other side of the fence.
The truck where they're like trying to find you, and the headlights are that stuff, especially because that's just shown right at the beginning of the game, and going in with the expectation like, oh, this is Limbo 2, that stuff is a little surprising because Limbo has a 0 of that, and that was really cool.
And the story was really had me interested. There's not all that much to say about it, but it's still, there's some meat to chew on afterwards, where you're thinking about what exactly happened or could have happened, and it's sort of ambiguous, but they give you some clues.
It tells a story.
Yeah, definitely.
A simple, vague one, but yeah, it has a nice little. It also, I don't know if you've seen, like, there's a revelation, which is pretty obscure. You have to, like, get the collectibles and then go to a certain spot.
Yeah, I saw the
game.
secret ending on YouTube.
Yeah, and that's kind of important to the story. But
I'm not totally
yeah,
sure
cool.
what it means, though.
It's some kind of meta thing about you're playing
That's
the game.
kind of what I
the
figured.
Guys being played, I guess. I don't know. It's Super Hot has that would have been really cool to me if Super Hot hadn't done pretty much the exact same thing better. I think.
Better.
Yeah, Super Hot has the same kind of revelation. I'll just go ahead and spoil Super Hot. It's not a big deal. The story is not what you get that game for, but it was a nice little surprise because I didn't expect that game to have any story. Super Hot, you're going through the levels and the thing is flashing at you. Do this, do this, do this, and you're shooting people and it's like kill them all, and you kill them all, and it flashes up these things at you, these orders and commands, and you get to a point where you're looking through a window, an apartment window, and there's a person sitting at their desk and they're wearing a VR headset. And when you move your head, they move their head. And then you go later on and you're in the apartment and you're behind them and you've got your gun. And again, their head's moving when you move. And the screen starts flashing for you to kill them and shoot them in the head. And so you shoot yourself in the head, and it's kind of funny and creepy, but yeah, it's basically a very similar concept of like the characters being played, and it's all meta, but yeah.
Okay. I actually have not played the full version of Super Hot yet. I've been meaning to do that.
It's cool. I would wait for it to go on sale, but it's really cool. I highly recommend it.
I didn't put this down on the doc, but I played a horror game called Layers of Fear. Have you heard of that?
Don't think so.
Okay. It's very heavily inspired by PT, it seems like. It's not doing the exact same shtick as PT, like that Allison Road game that we watched a trailer for that looked really bad. It's its own thing, but very clearly inspired by PT. You play a painter who's losing his mind, and it plays a lot with like impossible geometry where you'll be walking around and then like you'll walk through a door, it's a dead end, but you turn back around to leave and now the door is gone and you're stuck in there, and then something will happen, and it does a lot of cool stuff like that. Kind of Stanley Parable, but played straight.
Sure.
In terms of some of the geometry stuff it does. A lot of cool effects too. Like in the kitchen there's a painting of a bunch of fruit on a table, like one of those classic, I don't know enough about art, but I want to say like Baroque still life things where it's like a basket of fruit, and then you look at it and then all the fruit like starts physically tumbling out of the picture, and like actual 3D fruit starts rolling out of it and onto the ground. So lots of cool stuff. However,
I think I might have seen some footage of this game because like I'm kind of having sort of like books that attack you or something.
No, there's not really much attacking you that goes on. It's much more of a walking simulator than a game.
Right.
There's not really a way to fail. What it's less successful at than those presentational tricks is the horror. It starts out kind of creepy because you don't know what's going to happen and the geometry's changing, and there are some legitimately great moments. Like one that stands out is you go down into the basement and like your wife, who you kind of assume is dead but you don't really know, was supposed to be big into the piano, and you hear like the piano coming from the basement. Or is that how it works? I don't know. Maybe you like hit it. But either way, the piano's playing and you are in the basement and it's clutter everywhere. Normally, like when you first walk in, when you turn around from the piano, all the items in the basement have like started floating in the air, but there's hundreds of them, like physics objects, and you can walk through and you start like knocking them all around, and there's like huge numbers. It's kind of hard to explain just how many items are around, like paintbrushes, hundreds of them are everywhere, and chairs and tables, and you just walk through it like you're pushing water out of the way. It's really cool. But less effective than that stuff is the actual horror stuff. So they directly copied the twitchy lady from PT. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Which wasn't necessarily
and then she grabs you.
a unique concept.
Well, yeah, but it's exactly the same as PT.
Right.
Where it's a pale, thrashing, twitchy lady with weird, like, glitchy video effects going on. And she, like, rushes up to you and grabs you and shakes her face and, then drops you. Yeah. So that already wasn't quite as effective as I think they were intending, because I'd seen it in PT before. But then they repeat that, like, it must be 8 times at least. There are like 8 different occasions where this twitchy lady grabs you, picks you up, goes, drops you, and then you're in a different area. It's not like a lose state or anything.
Right.
So, yeah, very questionable decision there. And then at some point they just start padding it out for what seems like no reason. Most of it, you're moving from room to room, and you just keep moving forward, and it feels like you're pushing deeper into this guy's fucked up mind. And it's cool. But toward the end, there's this sequence where you're in this one room, and side rooms keep opening up as you solve puzzles. And the puzzle, I'm using that term very loosely, is you walk into one of these side rooms, you scan around for minutes trying to find a tiny little checker, like from the game Checkers. You have to find one tiny checker in each room, click it, and then walk back to the checkerboard, and then it'll go like, and open up the next side room. And it does that like 12 times in a row. It's obnoxious.
PT's puzzle.
It's yeah, but that's not when you're meant to solve.
I'm just kidding.
In this game, it eventually asks, like after you've been doing the checker thing for a while, it puts up on the wall, "Who are you even playing against?" And at that point, I was like, I don't care. I just want to stop. I don't want to do this anymore. And the ending's very corny, but overall it was fun. Unique little horror game. Really shitty engine, Unity is. But like it's kind of, I don't know. It doesn't look like garbage. I think this is Unity 5 they were using, but it just feels something's clunky about it in a way that's kind of hard to describe. Unreal 4 is just obviously better, it seems like.
Yeah, I have been having trouble, I will say, with Abduction. Although it looks fantastic, I have had some performance trouble where it locks up occasionally a little bit, like it'll drop a few frames and kind of like it's loading a new segment almost, but it happens seemingly at random a lot of the time. It doesn't run super well. I was kind of disappointed, thinking like, well, it's an Unreal game, shouldn't it run really well? I don't know.
Abzu also was on Unreal 4. That I ran into no troubles with. Yeah. There's a lot that can be done with that engine.
Sure.
Stylistically, it's not just more realistic, which I think could have been a bad thing if they didn't push the effects through as well.
I wish horror games would get out of the. They've always been super unoriginal, and missing the point of what makes the good horror games good. Like okay, for years we had the Amnesia knockoffs, and they're still coming out.
And Slender.
Monster follows you around, and you have to hide from the monster. And then there was the Slender stuff where you can't look at the monster, and which was also Amnesia, I guess. But yeah, lots of Slender Man games. And then now that PT came out, and that was a thing. Now you've got people trying to do the PT thing, but not. And I'm not saying I could do any better, but the lack of originality and the way that they missed the point is what kills me. It's like what made PT good was the atmosphere and the tension, you know?
Yeah.
It was so full of dread. Every bit of that game
Absolutely.
was just dread.
Yeah. Because you did not know what would cause the monster lady to come. You didn't know what was happening or what you were supposed to do or what the next step. In this, the thing to do is always walk directly forward. The tension that you were just talking about there, which is so crucial to PT, absolutely no tension at some point in Layers of Fear, because by the 6th time the scary lady picks you up and drops you, it's not scary at all when you see her. She's just how you progress. So I would see her like at the end of the hallway and the lights are flashing and putting her in the silhouette and ooh, spooky, and I would just ran directly forward because I knew that would be fine.
And PT doesn't just, someone might look at PT and say, well, it just makes you go through the same hallway over and over again and there's creepy stuff there. But it makes you look at things you don't want to look at.
Yeah.
The bathroom door will open and you'll say, well, I just want to run by that bathroom and get to the end of the hallway. But then you realize, no, I have to go in there. And then it's like, oh, well, I have to look through the hole. And that's part of what makes PT so great, is like your natural instinct is to just run through it all and kind of ignore what's happening, but it doesn't let you. And everything is so fucking creepy. I wish more games could pull off what PT did. And I don't know if PT could have pulled off what it did if it was a full game either. I mean, the fact that it's like a 30-minute experience or an hour-long experience, it definitely gives an advantage where you never get tired of it, and the pacing is perfect where you don't get exhausted from the fear, which I've definitely had games where it's like, all right, this is scary, but I've been playing it for an hour and a half, and now I just want to stop. And I'm just frustrated and annoyed at the creepy stuff.
That's definitely true for when I'm playing horror games. At some point, I just don't want to play anymore.
They need
particular
breaks.
Sessions.
One of the things, I think this game, I won't call it underrated. A lot of people love it, but Fear, the first Fear game, would have scary stuff happen, and then huge, fun as hell, crazy, awesome firefights. And then scary stuff would happen, and then you go through another firefight. And it spreads out the scary stuff so that you don't just get exhausted with it and you don't just get tired of it. And a lot of people don't say Fear isn't all that scary, but I was young and it was scary.
Well, that's the kind of pacing that everybody wants their adventure games and their action games to have. I mean, when people talk about how to structure an action game, downtime is pretty important, where you can't just be firing on all cylinders at all times, because then it doesn't stand out anymore. There's no energy if it's just flat but up here all the time.
Alien Abduction was kind of exhausting for me, because it's like the one gameplay mechanic in that game, or at least for the first 10 hours that I played, is hide from the bad guys, and you get exhausted. It's just like, I'm constantly hiding from the bad guys. And yeah, it's creepy, and they've done a really good job with it, and the mechanic is really well done, and it works. But when you're doing it for 10 hours, it loses all its luster, and I never played more than 10 hours of that game.
That's what Outlast did for me. I got that for free on PSN, with the PS Plus thing, and it was just constant with the jump scares and the scripted horror sequences, and they were planned pretty well sometimes, and they would be surprising, and I'd go, whoo, like that. And but by 2 or 3 hours in, I was already getting tired of it, because it was just one thing after another where, oh, go get the key from here, and then you'll walk in there, and then a big scary guy starts coming, so you better duck under the table. And eventually I just kind of got what was going on. Like, okay, this is my objective. On the way there, something crazy is going to happen, so I better be ready to poop my pants.
And
I
even if it's legitimately well done and scary, you don't. I mean, the whole point of you playing scary games is because a part of you wants to be scared.
Yeah.
But eventually, you get tired of that. Yeah.
Okay, I actually finished Until Dawn. I got to play it at my buddy's place again, and finish the playthrough I had going. That's a game that I think does it very well, because in between the horror bits, the characters are talking and it's fun, and sometimes it's funny.
Conversations.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. And plus, just superficially, it's a lot closer to a horror movie than most games are. But that really also applies for how it's paced generally, where you have the downtime, you have, to reference time again, you have time to absorb the environment when you're not being chased by things or there's no imminent threat, and you get a lay of the house, the cabin that they're in, and you really get... I think it may be close to like 20 to 1 downtime to scary time.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that works. It works really well for that game. I like the way it
Definitely.
ended. I wound up
I
buying
like
it
that
myself. I thought it was $60, which is why I was like, okay,
Right.
I had my fill of it. I'm done. I don't need to buy it again just to play it. But turned out it was $20.
That's more than reasonable for that game.
Yes.
That's
so
a full 10 hours of a good game.
yeah, I wound up buying it myself, and I'll do my second playthrough, and hopefully I'll save some of these people this time.
Did you not save anyone?
I did save people, but at the end, so a couple people died because I was holding down the walk faster button, which disables QuickTime events for some reason, which I think we talked about last time.
Yes, we did.
Then, also, at the end of the game, it was like a big plan to kill the monster, where the gas is on in the fireplace, and we're gonna spark it and light the whole place up. And after like staying still so that the monster doesn't see you, and distracting him to help your friend take the light bulb off of one of the light bulb things, I don't even know what you would call it, like a candelabra thing that's electric. Either way, he unscrews it so it'll make a spark and light the whole place up. So then it gave me two options: hide or run for switch. And I picked run for switch, and the girl I was playing just sprints over to the switch, flips it. She didn't just run to it, she flips the switch, kills everyone inside the house.
Yep.
That's not what I wanted to do.
Yep.
They looked at each other and were like, at the same time, yeah?
Like it's a plan.
Like they had a plan. Like he was ready to, I don't know, jump out the window or the door next to him.
They didn't telegraph that everyone else wasn't making.
Are you aware of this? It
Yes,
sounds like you've heard of this before.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, I've seen a full playthrough of the game, and that part in particular, I was like, yeah, you gotta run towards the switch. You're near the switch, you gotta run towards the switch. Not keep hiding, because the monster's definitely gonna find you and bite your head off.
It happens right before the end, and boom!
Yeah.
Almost everyone dies.
I would be more pissed off about it if it weren't so fucking hilarious when it happens.
Right. And just immediately after, I was like, okay, well,
yeah, it's like
I have to play it again now just to get a less disastrous outcome. I also, the Joshua character, his head got crushed like a grape.
Yep.
I was a little too slow on the draw on that QuickTime event. That's the only one that I really felt like, okay, I just fucked that one up. Otherwise, it was the L1 thing and the house exploded.
I wish that L1 thing didn't happen to you.
I don't get that. I just don't get it.
A lot of the QuickTime things that they do, like the standing still and like using the motion controller.
That is very cool.
That's a clever thing. Like, okay, that makes sense.
Now, it was a little cheesy once they had done the don't move thing throughout the game. And well, no, not that. Once that's been done several times at several points in the game, and they're finally getting into the monster stuff in the later parts, and then the grizzled mountain man is talking about, I heard a rumor that they can't see you if you don't move. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, that's very convenient, because there's a thing in this game where you don't move. But it is cool when the monster's like right on the other side of like some wooden planks, and you can see its like beady eyes moving around, and you have to stay super still. Very cool game. I'm gonna play that again. Cool. And the PS4 is just the gift that keeps on giving. I don't know if you've got something else to talk about, but firing all cylinders right now. Neo, I got to play the beta of that. So Neo, do you know what this is? Yeah. So for the folks at home who don't, Neo is kind of like a Dark Souls style ninja samurai game.
Yeah.
It's like an action game made by Team Ninja, I believe. Yes. People who made Ninja Gaiden. And it's a very fast-paced... Actually, not very fast-paced, but...
Compared to Dark Souls.
Yeah,
Dark
fast-paced,
Souls 1.
smooth action, combat that's very punishing, strategic dodging and managing weapon movesets, that kind of thing. I don't really know how to get into this because I don't know if it would make more sense to talk about it in reference to Dark Souls, which I think most people listening have played or are familiar
You
with,
kinda have
or
to.
just
It's-
yeah. It definitely wouldn't exist without Dark Souls. I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty clear. It does take its own direction in a lot of ways, but it really, really closely follows the Dark Souls formula, where it could be a game that From Software made as like a spin-off. Definitely more different than Bloodborne is from the main Souls games, but still very similar. You have revenants, I think they call them, like these dark spirits that are from other players. They're not actual players, they're just like NPCs built from other players' inventories, but they are kind of like the multiplayer elements in those games. Okay, well, to start, the combat's very, very good. It does that very well.
That's important.
More depth than Dark Souls, I'd say, in terms of moment-to-moment combat gameplay. A lot of that's owed to there being 3 stances in combat. You switch between holding your weapon low, middle, or high, and you toggle those states, and you have to change between them frequently during combat if you want to be most effective. And so high, you have longer range, hit harder, but you're slower. Then mid is best at blocking, and low is best at dodging and being really fast. So you have reason to switch between them frequently, I've found. There's not just, okay, this is my style of play. I'm going to mostly go middle, or I'm going to mostly go low. That's not how this game is played at all. You really have to be switching between them frequently. And also, the weapons, I find, you also have to switch between frequently, because some weapons will just not work all that well against some enemies. Or maybe that's just me being bad and new at it, but I don't know. It seems like you got to do a lot of switching. Bows and ranged weapons are tremendously useful. Everyone should use them, and they make that very easy because there's a dedicated ranged attack button that it doesn't take up regular weapon slots or anything like it does in Dark Souls. Like, you are expected to use ranged weapons, and you really should. I don't... I'm finding myself not having all that much to say about this game. I was really excited to play it, and it's fun, but it's just not all that interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know. In some ways, and this is kind of a harsh comparison, or might sound more harsh than it is, but it reminds me of Dark Souls 2, where I think it can get away with this a little more than Dark Souls 2 could, because it's meant to be kind of historical fiction with some supernatural elements, not like its own fantasy world. So
Yeah.
I get why the environments are kind of bland, because they're meant to be real places, sort of, in Japan and that age. But for the most part, it seems like pretty standard. This is the town by the sea, and this is the cave, and this is the grassy field, and that's not all that fun to explore.
Yeah.
The combat is compelling, I'd say, but really what gives those games staying power is the place that you're fighting in, not just the fighting.
Yeah, I mean, what makes you want to play more Dark Souls is to figure out what's next.
Yeah.
To see what the game has for you, and not just the gameplay. I mean, the gameplay is just good enough to keep you going.
That's what I think. If this game has one major problem, it's that, where I'm not totally interested in seeing what comes next, because I can kind of guess what's going to come next, so far at least. Maybe there are major surprises and variations in setting and enemy
It needs
types
to
later,
rely more on
but
the story, I guess.
yeah, I guess it would need to. It's hard to tell what the full game's going to be like, because this is a demo. They call it a demo beta. So
Sure. At
two
least
layers
they're
of
being
this.
more honest about it.
Yeah. There was no real introduction or cutscene to explain things, so I think that is not final, most likely.
Yeah. Needs a good anime story to keep you going.
It really does need that. The hero is kind of cool. He's a white guy in the east, the far east, the Orient, and he's a
Tom Cruise?
samurai. He is Tom Cruise. He's actually not Tom Cruise. He's Geralt. He looks a lot like
okay.
Geralt.
Yeah.
He's got the long gray hair, the Scandinavian features. He's basically Geralt with a samurai sword. But yeah, no real introduction to him or what he's trying to do or the point of anything. I'm sure that'll be in the actual game. But
Yeah.
I mean, really, there's some things that are inspired, but for the most part, it's really not. Like, the demons look kind of cool, but they all look similar. I've only run into, like, 3 types of them so far, and it's all the same kind of. Then, besides just the design and the world, some of the actual combat scenarios feel like they came from Dark Souls 2. So one that I was just streaming earlier, it's like this, I don't even know what to call it. It's like a side mission. This is not an open world game. You pick levels and move around a world map. And there was one side mission that I played. You start out in like a circular grassy arena. You fight a wave of enemies and then another wave. And then it opens up a narrow hallway into another grassy circle where you fight more enemies. And then another narrow hallway. You can kind of see where this is going. And then at the end of this whole ordeal, it's this huge demon guy with these big bulging eyes and massive biceps, and he's just wailing on you. Really cool. I thought that was like the boss or something. But then after I take him down, it turns out it's actually like another wave of enemies type deal. And 2 of them spawn. And then it just got obnoxious. They were on you constantly. I found myself just sprinting backwards most of the time, trying to find an opening to hit them once or twice. It really fucking sucked. It felt directly lifted from Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, and that's my least favorite thing that all the Dark Souls games have done, where it's like, well, you thought 1 enemy was hard. How about 2 or 3 or 4?
Yeah.
I hate that.
Yeah, and it seems like even in this beta, that's also how a lot of the regular enemy encounters from the main missions go as well. It's not just the side missions. Lots of enemies in kind of tight areas. Yeah, it's... I don't know. I heard somebody saying it looked way better than Bloodborne. That's not true. It's just not. But I hope that they managed to improve it. From what I've seen and heard of the previous beta for this that was going on, they have listened to feedback a lot. So hopefully they'll continue to for the final release of this game. But at the moment, it's got some problems, but cool.
Alright. Well, I don't have like any news. The PS4 Slim version was leaked. And like leaked as in like someone got their hands on a physical PS4 Slim.
Oh.
Fully working. I think there's even like a review out there somewhere for it, and it hadn't even been announced. But yeah, not much to say about that. I mean, it's a PS4 Slim. Everyone knew it was coming, right? I don't know. There's not anything. We're teetering on the precipice of games starting to come out in time for Black Friday. So soon enough, we'll have plenty of news to talk about, I guess. But right now, I don't know. As far as I know, not much to talk about.
It kind of seems like the PS4 is just now getting a library big enough to justify buying one.
Took a while.
Neo, I think that's worth. It's something you have to acknowledge. It's pretty good when that comes out. So Neo, Last Guardian, Horizon, that Dreams thing for Media Molecule,
Yeah.
Bloodborne, obviously, Until Dawn, and Uncharted 4. It's a solid lineup.
That is a very solid lineup. Much more solid than Xbox One's.
Yeah, I was in the store the other day, the gaming store, and I was looking at the Xbox One catalog that they had, and what got me thinking was that I saw a pre-owned Xbox One that, was not all that expensive, and I was thinking, maybe there's something for this that I could do an impulse buy and get an Xbox One. Nothing interested me. It was just Halo, and everything else was multi-platform. That and the Rare collection.
Well, they've got Gears of War 4 coming out, which all right, cool. Forza Horizon is probably going to be good, but those are all coming out on the PC too. So for me particularly, it's like, well, why the fuck would I get an Xbox One? But that's fine. That seems to be part of their strategy, I guess. But yeah, there would have been some news, but this turned out to be non-news. I think retailers giving refunds for No Man's Sky. Particularly Steam, people were saying was giving you free refunds, and I remember reading it and thinking, I think people are getting confused because Steam will give you a full refund for a game if you haven't asked for a refund before. Like that's always been something that Steam has done, and so people were getting. Well,
and now they have the official refund policy.
Yeah, but people were saying, oh well, it doesn't matter how long you played and all that stuff, but like, they've always let you do that. And of course, there's always been a factor of luck of like, well, maybe if you get the right person, then you can get a refund. But like, people were acting like, I think Reddit was going around saying, hey, you can refund No Man's Sky on Steam no matter how many hours you have put in, and then it turned out not to be true, even though all these news articles have come out about it. Just stupidity. And then like people were saying, well, still Amazon's giving refunds for it. Well, Amazon gives you refunds for everything. It seems like complete non-news, but that game continues to dominate the very loud fighting parts of the gaming community on the internet.
I just went to the store page for No Man's Sky. They have a special disclaimer that says the standard Steam refund policy applies to No Man's Sky. There are no special exemptions available. Click here for more details. Yeah. So it kind of tells you a lot about how many people have been trying to return this game, how much people are concerned about how open they are to returning this game. People really
hate No Man's Sky, and I get it. That game was a ripoff. It sucks, kinda. I mean, the game's all right, but if that game had come out at $40, this wouldn't be a discussion at all. This would be fine. Yeah. But $60 was too much for it. I think. Even with the developer Sean Murray, who I've talked about being, he seems like such a nice guy and everything. He came out there and he was saying things about the game that were patently false.
The chances of that happening are very low. Meeting another player, but it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible if someone hacks the game, maybe, or something like that. Even with all that, people seem way too invested in hating on this game. Like, I don't know, it's become a thing. It's like the latest Call of Duty trailer. It's like people have got to jump on something and get really angry about it and hate it together, and it's fun because it's video games.
It doesn't seem like people manage their expectations very well on this.
No, that would be an understatement. I mean, but like, you pre-ordered the game. Like, fucking everyone was saying, it looks cool. Maybe it'll be cool, but we'll see. Everyone was saying that. You pre-order the game, and ignore everyone saying, well, I don't know, maybe it's not all that great.
Or
you deserve to get fucked because
I guess so, yeah.
Like, it was just. I don't want to say you deserve to get fucked. If someone just saw the advertisement for that game on the Steam page or whatever and said, ooh, this looks cool, and bought it, and then said like, oh, this is not that great, that sucks. You bought up a crappy game, sorry. But if you did your research and you saw what people were saying about the game before and after release, deal with it.
But what if it's scary? What if I'm just so hype?
Everyone was hype.
Everyone
about
was
it.
pretty hype about this game.
Well,
Star Citizen's going to be funnier.
oh
When
my
that
God,
game
Star
finally
Citizen.
comes out,
Oh, that's actually something
it'll
I wanted
be a
to talk about.
bloodbath.
They showed up at Gamescom or somewhere and showed like an hour of gameplay of Star Citizen, where they like flew around in their ship, went to a planet, got on a space station. They were playing multiplayer. They had one guy on the ship outside of the station on the planet's surface, and he was looking in. And it was like, it was funny because the developer, and I feel kind of bad for them. On the one hand, I feel kind of bad. On the other hand, I hate their guts. But the developer spent the whole time saying, like, "Look, see, it works. It's a thing that exists. Look, see, look, the multiplayer. Look, these players are like
Not a
was it.
scam."
The whole presentation was just proving that technologically this game works, and everyone was cheering every time something would happen. Like, oh, he got off the ship and he landed on the planet's surface. Woo! He got back on the ship. Woo!
Yeah.
He got on his speeder.
Clearly, installing a Wi-Fi doorbell is that important at 11 o'clock at night.
We'll just finish up the podcast. Are we streaming?
Yes, we are.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Star Citizen.
Sucks!
The technology exists. The game exists. The things that they're saying that they can do exist in some form that is presentable to an audience.
There you go.
Still not a game.
Nope, I'm confident now. That's all I need. I'm pre-ordering.
You should look up the footage. I mean, it is pretty impressive, some of the stuff they do. Also, some of it is really bizarre. There's a mission that they get from an NPC who has facial expressions and everything. I guess they're showing off the actual Squadron 42 version of the game instead of... I still don't really
What is
understand what the
Squadron
difference is.
42?
So at some point they split the game up into Squadron 42, which was going to be a single-player / cooperative experience, and Star Citizen, which was going to be some kind of pseudo MMO pseudo-MMO kind of thing. And
I've never heard that said that way before.
and so now there's like two separate games, I guess.
Okay,
Both
yeah, it
multiplayer,
looks that way on
one's
their
more
website.
Cooperative focus. And yeah, they got a quest from an NPC who was like fully voiced and had facial stuff and all that stuff, and they sat down.
looks
at a
like
table
Gary
with him.
Oldman.
Yeah, and it was kind of odd.
It's actually played by Gary Oldman.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't catch that. Well, there you go.
Why? Why do they need Gary Oldman?
Because you've got the money.
They have Mark Hamill also.
They have over $100 million to spend. They have to find places to spend it.
Yeah, this was totally unnecessary, and this is all just for
Everything about this
the
game is
Squadron 42 game.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
The crazy thing about this game is, like, on the one hand, they try to be super realistic. Like, this is the space sim you've always wanted. Super realistic. You go from space to atmosphere to planet seamlessly, all that stuff. They showed themselves going from space to the planet, and the scale isn't realistic. The scale doesn't make sense of the game. There's some kind of space station thing in orbit that's like a landing, like a sequence of lights to land on the planet, I guess, or whatever. And they go through that, and they land on the planet, and I can see the little space station with the lights like orbiting above them, not all that far off the ground, really. Like, it's miles away, but that's nothing in space terms.
Right.
So, like, the scale is, like, constricted, I guess, which wouldn't be realistic. I don't know what that game is. I don't know. I don't believe a word that comes out of their mouths.
Yeah.
They keep talking about more and more features that they're going to have. You're going to be able to mine into the center of an asteroid to get at the minerals, and it's all going to be interactive, and everything's going to be great, and you're going to love it, and it's going to be awesome, and all these modules will work seamlessly, and all these things we're adding are great and awesome, and you're going to love it. And I just don't believe it for a second.
Why would they try to make two games?
Because originally the Kickstarter was for Squadron 42.
Really?
Originally the Kickstarter. If you were a backer at the very beginning, you were backing a cooperative campaign that was going to be very realistic. Realistic in terms of doability.
Okay.
They can make that game. Like, it's a thing that could exist. And at some point, it got so popular, so many people gave so much money, so many millions to them, that they said, well, we can make this almost like an MMO, or maybe they're actually trying to make it an MMO. I don't know. And they started saying, like, all right, we're going to have planets that you can land on, and we're going to have stations that you can go inside, and we're going to have all this shit, and buy our $20,000 ship, and I don't know, it got out of hand, man, to say the least. It got out of hand. Yeah, I don't know what that game is anymore. My guess would be that Squadron 42 will still come out as a reasonably good cooperative space campaign that's about 10 hours long, maybe. Well, maybe it'll be really long. I don't know. They'll deliver on that promise, I hope, and I think maybe. They have the technology to do it. It's realistic. It can happen. It's when you get to the Star Citizen side of things where it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? How are you going to do this? And even if you do it, at what point does it become a game?
Yeah.
Where is your game? You're talking about all this stuff.
That's what No Man's Sky had to answer
but
and
it's worse
could not.
Than No Man's Sky in a way, because like No Man's Sky, at least they never said anything about what you can do. They just said, look, it's planets.
Well, they did say you can do anything, but they didn't.
But sure, the Peter Molyneux thing, but Star Citizen is very specifically telling you,
yeah,
you can
that's
mine.
True.
Here's how you mine. Here's what you do. Here's the mechanics of it. Here's the ships that do it. Here's the items that you need, the skills that you need. And at no point do they say, and here's how it's a game. Like, here's your incentive for mining or anything. It's just like, you can do it, so I guess you will do it. God, and then they show stuff that seemingly, to me, conflicts, but maybe someone more familiar with the project would be able to tell me what exactly is going on here, because they show a city hub, and it's something you can walk around in, extremely detailed, but it's a hub. It's a space that you can't leave. It's detailed. There's a lot of stuff there, but there's what appears to be, to me, a backdrop that you can't get to, like other skyscrapers and ships flying around and that kind of thing that are just
decoration.
Stuff that you would see in a Mass Effect game that's just decoration in the background. You can't get there. You can't interact with it. But then they say that you can seamlessly fly from space to the city. Can you or can you not? Because to me it looks like the hub is its own thing. I don't get it. And then they say you can get in these little cars and drive around in the hub, but why would you? Because it's not that big. Why did you spend all this time making this little car that you can drive around in a hub that isn't big enough to drive around? What the fuck is that game? Why are people paying $20,000 on ships and giving away their life savings?
I think a lot of people are in for a very rude awakening when that game comes out.
It's a dream. It's a dream that they want to come true, and
some people will never wake up from the dream. They will insist that they got everything they hoped for out of Star Citizen.
Yeah. I don't know. Oh, I think that game will come out. It'll come out in a rolling way. It won't come out with a 1.0. It's out. It'll be like early access. It'll come out and it'll have a bunch of the features that they talk about having, but they'll be haphazardly slammed together in this thing that doesn't actually present itself as a game, and you can just do stuff. That's what it is right now. You can fire up your dogfighting module and you can go dogfighting for no reason with no context. I think that's what the game's going to be. But we'll see. Maybe I'm being too negative. They have a lot of money to do what they're talking about. They have a lot of money.
Sure are spending it well, too. Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman and
Mark Hamill, ironically, is playing a character named Old Man.
Really?
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe they have a sense of humor about themselves.
I doubt it.
All right.
Thank you for watching Push to Shout. Next week, you'll see a podcast that is about video games called Push to Shout. Good night.
Hopefully.